Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, Kay, and I'm joined on the desk by Dio and T1G. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Dio. I'm streaming this episode. If there's any tech difficulties, please be patient. But we should be good this time. I commentate stuff.
I wasn't sure if that was going on more. I'm T1G.
No, that's it.
I also commentate stuff
Yeah.
and host stuff. I'm not streaming this, thank God. I am very glad to not be streaming this.
I'm
It
glad
is
to not be
wonderful.
streaming anymore. All right. All jokes aside, we're going to be going over semifinals recap. We're going to be going over semifinals for Core States Close as well as finals predictions. Really hectic week. But yeah, let's get into it. So, semifinals recap, we're going to start us off with Kriller versus Chicone. That was a 6-4 going in favor of Kriller. Really awesome match for them because I think personally for us, like, we knew that this was going to be a closer match, and that's exactly what we got. Kriller did super well on, basically what we expected him to do well on, and he ended up performing 4th out of 12 for that weekend, and yeah, really nice job from him.
Yeah, this was a super fun match actually. Like you said, it was super back and forth. Everybody like won the stuff they were kind of expected to win. It was 9 straight maps with no break points, I believe. You just saw the Kriller Hidden 3 FC, which was one of the sickest plays like of the entire week. Went on to have a really ridiculous run on Hard Rock 3 to get the break point, and then closed it out on his own pick. This was like actually, I don't think we predicted this to be as close as it was, if memory serves.
I think
But
we predicted
Chicone,
6-4,
I
or
think
at least I think I did.
I forget exactly, but Chicone performed really well on all of his own picks, and then he just ran out. He didn't have a pick for the last pick of the match. I forget the other map that would have been available then, but it was like Hard Rock 3 or something else that maybe didn't seem super optimal. Went into the Hard Rock 3, and Kriller just put up a nuts run. Like that score on Hard Rock 3 was insane to get the break point for the match. So, what are you gonna do? Yeah, I mean, it came down to that, and it was just a good job.
Yeah. A lot of really close points, as you said. Most of the mechanic stuff was Chicone favored. Even stuff where like there's a good chance that Kriller is able to do well on it. Like they were number 3 and 4 on the weekend on the DT4 you see right now. But both of them played very well through the match. And I think a lot of what we talked about last week was like the pools are, I think, a little favored toward more gimmick focused players. In just like, Nomad 2 is not necessarily as much of a stamina map. Nomad 5 maybe a little double tappable. Even the scores for both of these players on that map were relatively close as well. So I think it just makes it a little hard if you're going the like mechanics or speed abuse route versus an opponent. Chicone was able to do that really well, but the Hard Rock 3, of course, ended up deciding the match.
Yeah, Kriller top scored the hiddens. Wow, to anyone's surprise. And then he got really nice scores on Nomad 3, was near the top for that. Wow, Nomad 2 towards the bottom. Who could have thought? But yeah, really good job from Kriller, really good job from Chicone, and it's kind of sad to see Chicone go, but it is what it is. And I think we're gonna be moving to our next match of the weekend, Flying Tuna versus Taito. Um, According to Annie, who by the way is Tuna's girlfriend, Tuna got 4 hours of sleep and was drunk prior to his Chorus Ace close match, and he wasn't had his own setup, so we had like the unholy trinity of what could go wrong. Despite all of that happened, he still managed to get 2 points, which, in my opinion, if you're sleep deprived and hungover at AF, like, that's pretty impressive. I don't know about you. But
Yeah, I mean, It's
Go ahead.
I think it just makes playing mechanics in particular way more difficult. Like Tuna was able to get breakpoints on Nomad 6 and Hidden 2, or at least like get points on Nomad 6 and Hidden 2.
I think those were those were both his own pick, I believe. But...
Yeah, and I think you're just like not wanting to play pure mechanics because your motor control is maybe not as good as it usually would be, especially on a foreign setup. But I think did a good job making the most of what he had for this match. Despite that, Taito, of course, is going to advance on 6-2, and had a pretty good run through this match.
Yeah, I think this match. I mean, we anticipated it being, I think, closer than 6-2, but we anticipated it going kind of the way it ended up. In that Taito is, despite everything that Tuna is putting into improving his speed and his tapping, Taito is still the better player in those skill sets. But the big story about this one is, like Kay was talking about, just going to be the fact that Tuna was playing hungover, without sleep, on a suboptimal setup, and that's always just going to unfortunately harm your performance. And I think Taito playing as he did probably wins this match anyway, because he had some really good scores and a couple of like really clutch moments too, like the Hard Rock 3 that he won by 4K. But I think it would have come down to a closer matchup instead of him getting those couple of breakpoints and just sort of running with the match. But well played to Taito for this one for sure. You still have to put up the scores even if your opponent isn't in an optimal setting, and he did manage to do that.
Yeah, Taito just played absolutely out of his mind, and we'll talk about his potential later on, but it was just kind of like, even last week we saw his scores, and we knew that going into the week after, it was just going to be an incredible match. But yeah, we're going to actually be talking about his potential, because after this, because Kriller had one, and then Taito had one, it was Kriller versus Taito. That match ended up going 6-3 in favor of Kriller, and this was pretty decisive, I think, between us, because of the fact that, like, Kriller had one Nomad 3, Taito had one Nomad 2, like lol expected, and then it was literally the Nomads for the first 4 picks, and then it was straight Hard Rocks after that. So we went 4 Nomads and 3 Hard Rocks, and Kriller winning that really decisive breakpoint on Hard Rock 1 kind of put him on the edge, and then Taito fired right back, breakpoint on Hard Rock 3, and then Kriller had unfortunately won on Hidden 1 to bring about to match point, and then he picked Nomad 4, and it was kind of over from there, which a tech pick, like closing it out on a tech pick, especially against Taito, it's just like, oh, like to me, like that was a little bit of a toss up, but with his options left between the Nomad 1 and the Hidden 3, like the Nomad 4 pick is pretty understandable.
This match felt weird when we were casting it. Like, Taito
absolutely.
picking into multiple Hard Rocks after the just disgusting run that Kriller had on the Hard Rock 2 that you see on screen right now. Felt very weird. And then the aim mechanics going Kriller's way through the match into Taito picking the Hidden 1, I think, and then Kriller picking Nomad 4 last instead of one of the other remaining mechanics picks was a very weird sort of match. But the end choices ended up working out very well for Kriller. So I can't say it was entirely a bad strategy, just not at all what we expected in this match.
Yeah, I think this match came down to a couple things. First of all, you can't do a huge amount of speed abuse on this pool. Like Taito got the Nomad 2 and Nomad 5, and then that was that. Because Kriller banned out DT1, DT2. And so I think Taito had a hard time, clearly, with the picks. Hard Rock 1, obviously, in hindsight, looks like just an incredible blunder. Taito picking that, getting 332k, 19 misses, and meanwhile Kriller puts up just the run of all time, getting 700k on that, which was absurd. Like, we were watching this, just I think like agape at what Kriller was doing on that map. And then it also came the last Taito pick where he picks the Hidden 1, and Kriller becomes, I'm pretty sure, the first player all weekend to hit this stupid full screen jump diff spike.
Yep.
And that was what made the difference, right? If he doesn't hit that, Taito probably wins the pick, but Kriller hits this right here, and it's like, oh, okay.
The pick's
and
over.
you know,
Like
that was it. Yeah, he managed to make the comeback solely based on that because there's so much stuff to hit after that. So, you know, like yeah, the picks look a little questionable in hindsight, but from the Kriller or from the Taito perspective, but at the same time, it took Kriller putting on like unbelievable scores on both of those maps in order to win them both. That was Kriller had the two best hidden one scores of the week, and the best Hard Rock one score of the week. So like chapeau to Kriller for that, because he showed up big on some of the most important moments in this match. Excuse me.
And even then, the Nomad 3, both of his Nomad 3 scores, mind you, from both of his matches, outperformed Taito on both of his. So the Nomad 3 that Taito put against Tuna, and the Nomad 3 that Taito put against Kriller, both of them were outshined. Like, Kriller's worst score of the two was 236k, and that still beat out both of Taito's scores. So I think it was just really unlucky roll of the die there. And then, whatever the heck Nomad 5 was, because the difference between the scores, by the way, is about 120,000. So that's kind of significant in the realm of Score V2. But their scores are right next to each other. And then, of course, you have Taito top scoring Nomad 5 with 960k, and pretty handily so.
That variance in the Nomad 5 is actually
superhuman, you know what I mean?
Going from 960 KFC all the way down to 541k. He was just lucky he was against someone who wasn't comfortable on this map, so he could win it anyway, despite dropping his score by 400,000 points.
Yeah. I mean, all said and done, Taito had a good weekend, though. Like, Tuna's not playing on his own setup. Maybe he's debuffed a little bit, but you still beat Flying Tuna 1v1, and you managed to put up 3 points against Kriller, who honestly was having a day of all time with the scores that he was able to put up on stuff like the Hard Rock 1, the Hard Rock 2, the Hidden 1. Like, it was a really, really solid day for Kriller in particular for this one. So I think just, you know, I think Taito can be happy with how he played at the very least, because this is a tough opponent to beat.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to semifinals, finals, these are where the real high-powered matches are, and sometimes, you know, during round of 16, quarterfinals, we kind of expect who's going to win just based off seeding, but semifinals, finals, that's where the decisions get really tough and anything can happen. And speaking of anything can happen, Emre versus Zydunator is going to be our next match. That was
the opposite of anything can happen.
Yeah, it's just like, we hope that Zydunator was going to get at least 1 point, but I think after the loss against Forum last week, my interpretation might have been just he just buckled down and was like, nope, the gloves are off, we're locking in 6-0 pretty handedly against Zydunator. Granted, Zyudi, mind you guys, decided to reschedule to 12 UTC, which is about 5 o'clock in the morning her time. I don't know, you know, if that works for her, by all means, but I cannot fathom playing a match. I can't even fathom roughing at 12 UTC. But yeah, don't just shut up. Don't.
I wasn't gonna say anything about you. I was just gonna talk about the match. Jeez. I think this match was just exactly what we anticipated it to be, and I don't know that there's a whole lot to be done about it. You know, unfortunately, the rate of improvement for some players is different than others, and Zyudi has been very good for a very long time, but she isn't quite good enough, as we talked about last week in prediction. She isn't quite good enough to beat a few people, and not many people are good enough to beat Emre in the first place. So that's just always how this was going to go. You had the really close pick on Hidden 1. It was like 30k. Which is Zyudi's skill set, and you had Emre choking tournament PP record, as we're seeing right now, with a near 2,000 combo breaking on the last 10 combo or whatever of DT1. This was pretty cool. But when all you can talk about is like, oh yeah, this guy almost set the tournament PP record and the other person didn't get a single point. Sorry.
Tough sometimes. I also just, I will repeat the same thing that I've said a couple of times here at this point. As the pools get harder, MREC gets better. 1200 combo on Nomad 4, case in point. Tournament PP record choke, case in point. yeah, maybe he buckled down because it's loser's bracket, but at the same time, you just expect him to be relatively better and better compared to everyone else as the pools get harder and harder because of his skill cap. So I feel like most people are expecting Emrek to continue winning along the rest of the tournament, although maybe there's a caveat to that because loser's bracket is interesting this week. We'll see. But yeah, it's tough to say more. Zudi, I think, had a okay tournament run. Very unlucky losers bracket in semifinals to be going against Emrek. But if you're not going against Emrek there, you're going against worst HR player. So, who would you rather be facing, right? There's not... that's not an easy matchup either way. So
this tournament gets hard fast. And, also, she was the 13 seed.
Yeah.
It's not going to ever be easy. It's not going to ever be easy when you're the 13 seed. There's just no easy run when you start from that far down.
Yeah.
Granted, her seeding is not accurate to what she could have gotten because she, if I remember correctly, was sight reading the pool. Also, the world, actually, speaking of Emrek, this is the matchup of the people who were seeded so incorrectly because Emrek was in a Valorant game and forgot he had Corsair's close and seeded 7th. Zudi didn't practice the pool and seeded 13th. So this was the matchup that probably should have never happened had they seeded correctly.
Yeah.
There's a few of those. There's a few of those this time.
There's a few of those.
There's a few of those.
But yeah, I think well, it is what it is. It happens, and unfortunately, this tournament only comes once a year. So we'll see what happens next year. We'll see if they get invited again, or what the pool is like. But enough of that. We're gonna be going to our next losers bracket match, which is Decon versus Intercamping, and this was a matchup that pretty much went expected, and Intercamping picked Nomad 6 and Hidden 2. He picked the gimmick, he picked the Hidden against someone like Decon, who is a Hard Rock Mechanics player. And yes, Intercamping himself is a Hard Rock player, but I think it was just am I slightly better? I'm not awesome at this, but I'm slightly better than you, so I'll pick it. And they won their own picks back to back to back. It led to tiebreaker, and Intercamping was sight reading the tiebreaker, and Decon won. And that's just how it went.
Yeah, this was a really fun match to cast because it was really close. There weren't any standout ridiculous scores, nobody's choking PP tournament record or anything like that, but it was a really fun match to watch and cast because it was so close, and because each player really knew what they needed to pick to get ahead. So this was a really interesting one. Again, you have Decon banning out some of the mechanics, a lot of the speed maps, Intercamping banning out double hard rock bans against Decon as well. And I think just both players knowing, hey, this guy's better than me at this, I'm going to pick other stuff. This guy's better than me at this, I'm going to pick other stuff. Where this really got fun to watch is at the very last couple of picks because the pool just got so small that there was very little left that they had market advantages on from paper.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at this one, like you're talking about. There were basically no real standout scores in this match. Neither of them top scored anything in the pool except for Nomad 1, which they were the only match to play it, and Tiebreaker, which they were the only match to play it. But like you said, it was super close, so it was compelling in that regard. You had the 14K Hard Rock 1, the 10K DT3, 30K Hidden 1. The ending of this match was just bangers. And then Decon coming up here, about to hit this crazy diff spike in Nomad 1, which was super clutch because they were both on huge combo, and he needed to hold on to make sure he could get to the tiebreaker. But I don't know. It was just hella close match. Two players with pretty different skill sets. And kids, if you're not going to practice the tiebreaker, at least look at it. Because I feel on paper, Intercamping is probably better at this skill set for the tiebreaker. But he just was unfortunately not at all familiar with the map and not prepared for it. And I mean, I get it. It's a long map. It's a long song. I understand people don't want to practice tiebreakers, but like, I feel that at this level of play, if you know what you're getting into, even just looking at it in editor, you have a a fighting chance against a player of a similar overall skill level to you. And yeah, unfortunate how the tiebreaker played out if you're an Intercamping fan.
Unlucky go next. Like,
yeah.
Bro did not look at the tiebreaker apparently, so that sucks. But I mean, Decon still put up what is, I think, a reasonably good score on it anyway.
I don't like. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Like, even if Intercamping practiced the tiebreaker, I don't know if he would have beaten Decon. Like, Decon put up a great score on tiebreaker.
Like,
I don't know if even if he
this
had
kind
practice.
of map though, this kind of map, looking at this sort of thing or playing it once or twice through helps so much in accuracy and just consistency overall that I think maybe 1 or 2 runs through is all it would take for Intercamping to get close. Like, this type of map in particular is not something that's very sight read friendly with how it plays in general, especially the changing rhythms and new red ticks everywhere. So I feel like if you're experienced with the song at least, and you can kind of predict some of the rhythm changes or be more comfortable with how awkward this map is and the slider patterns, it helps so much more with the accuracy. So maybe he would have had trouble, but also I feel like this is the kind of map where just a couple of runs through makes a huge difference.
Shout out to Mike
it's just unlucky.
Shout out to Mike Portnoy. Shout out to John Petrucci. Dream Theater.
And yeah, we're gonna go to the potential of that, which Decon versus Emre, right? In the potential, he comes off of the win, clawing his way up the mountain to bring, tiebreaker against Intercamping, and then gets swept by Emre. Look, that's just unlucky. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Decon just fought tooth and nail against Intercamping to get swept by Emre. It was like, I just felt bad for the guy, but what can you do when it's, you're up against the number 1 player in the world and he just swept ZD as well. And yeah, I don't know. You guys have anything to add? I mean, Decon still put up like decent scores. It's just Emre.
There's just not many people that can match up against Emre in finals. We're doing the broken record thing here every time we talk about him.
Yeah.
The pools get harder. He just continues to get better relative to everyone else. Shout out to this DT or this Hard Rock 2. That was a 2K score difference. That was kind of cool. The real opportunity for Decon to get a point in this one. But
for sure.
What can you do?
What can you do? Do you anything?
I already said what I needed to say.
Okay.
We go on.
So we're gonna close. We're gonna go into our winners bracket matches now. Worst HR player versus MCY4, and I think on Full Circle last week we predicted that worst HR player was gonna win. I think most of us predicted a 6-3, 6-4 scoreline, which is pretty much what happened. To the dismay of MCY4 fans, I don't think there was a universe that MCY4 was gonna win this. I just think that Forum scales a lot harder than MCY4. And we saw MCY4 take the gamble on the Hard Rock one before the second ban phase, and he had lost it. And worst HR player picked Hard Rock 3, he picked Hard Rock 2, and closed it out on DT1. I'm sorry, MCY4 picked Hard Rock 2, which after the Hard Rock 1, I know it's a different map and a different skill set, but after the Hard Rock 1, I would kind of assume that you'd be a little skeptical to pick the Hard Rock 2, especially after the Hard Rock 3 score, which happened directly after the second ban phase. And he got the break point, brought Forum up to match point, and Forum closed it out on DT1.
I just felt really bad for MCY4 in this one because he was down 4-1 after dropping 3 maps in a row with the Hidden 3 Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 3. Wins DT3. Then it has like just this insanely clutch play on Nomad 4. He became one of like not a whole lot of people, I don't know offhand, not a whole lot of people to hit the second diff spike in Nomad 4, which is ludicrously difficult slider in. So he wins these 2 points back to back, brings it back to 4-3. It's his own pick, and I need to know. I don't have the sheet of open in front of me, so I don't know what maps were left at that point in time, because it would have been like 4 maps left there.
Nomad 5, Hidden 1, Hard Rock 2, DT1.
Yeah, and I mean, I get not picking DT1. I don't know. Maybe he just didn't feel comfortable with many of them. Opts into the Hard Rock 2, lose it by 120k. Goodbye momentum. Goodbye match. It's match point, and Forum could play this DT1 pretty reasonably, and so it just was the closeout. But like that back-to-back performance on DT3 and Nomad 4 from MCY4, I had so much hope for him. I was like, man, if he can just win his own point, we're tied up 4-4. And it didn't happen, and it was a real tragedy.
Yeah, this was I mean, I feel like a lot of this match is just two players with relatively similar skill sets duking it out on maps where they're both very, very close. Like, you look at the score differences or the placement differences, and in very few places is there a significant score difference or, you know, difference in how they placed overall on the weekend. Even on Hard Rock 2, yeah, Forum got the top score for the weekend, but MCY4 is less than 120k behind him. So a lot of these maps are relatively close overall, with a couple of exceptions. And I think that just makes it very, very difficult for somebody to win. Because when you have two people who are the same skill set, if there's any sort of, you know, difference in the level of overall skill that they have, in this case, Worst HR player is one of the best in the game at this skill set that they're both relatively good at, the aim control, the finger control, which is the majority of maps that were played in this match. When one of them just has a raw skill advantage over the other like that, it's very, very tough. And MCY4 did a good job of picking into some of the other maps or performing very well when it mattered, like on this Nomad 4, picking into Nomad 2 as well. I think a relatively good strategy, but Hidden 3, the entire Hard Rock pool, all going the way of Worst HR player is really bad, because that's a lot of those picks that are good for both players on paper. So if you're not winning those toss-ups picks, you're probably not winning the match, and unfortunately that's how it went down.
I do want to say though, I have been like pretty continuously impressed by MCY4 in this
Oh,
tournament.
he's very good. He's top
Like
6
he's
for a
been
reason.
like, no, I just mean in general, like not even in like the context of what you were saying, but just as like my thoughts on that as well. Like getting 3rd seed and playing as well as he has been, and then making this match pretty close. And honestly,
I feel like
he had,
MCY4 just isn't talked about enough. And
Yeah,
like,
he-
yeah, people know him as a great player, but he's just never talked about. I don't know why.
He's not on like the super teams, right?
Yeah.
Like Hong Kong isn't incredible in OWC, and he's not on the super teams in the big open rank tournaments. So like, despite how good he is, he's just kind of slept on a little bit. And honestly, he has one matchup this weekend that the way he's playing could be winnable for him. Unfortunately, I don't know about the second one if he does win that. But
We'll talk
Yeah.
about that when we'll get there when we get there. And we're gonna go to the last match of the weekend, which which was Maliszewski versus Enry, and I'm gonna yap quite a bit about
boy.
this.
Oh boy.
Okay. So yes, Enry ended up winning 6-4, but Maliszewski wins Hidden 2 like 9 times out of 10. I'm sorry. The disconnect on Hidden 2 in particular, that was my decision, so yes, I will take responsibility. I know a lot of people will not agree with me following the rules, especially because of how late the disconnect is and how something is apparently happening with the game and it's causing stutters and crashes, blah 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 blah. Peppy EMP, I don't fucking know. But yes, I will take responsibility for that decision. Yes, people will disagree with me, and it indeed had favored Enry at that point in time. But that was that was the decision that I ended up making. And yes, it brought Enry up 5-2. And yes, it was a very unfortunate circumstance. But we have precedents for it as well in other matches. So that's really what I'm going to say about the Hidden 2 incident. This is unironically like the worst timeline because number one, Emre is in losers bracket just based off what happened during quarterfinals winners where Forum won no mod 5, and realistically it would have been a 6-1 or 6-2, whatever the scoreline was. Number two, Maliszewski is also in losers bracket because when the disconnect happened on the hidden 2, it brought Enry up, like I said, to a 5-2, and Maliszewski, when it was his final pick before tiebreaker, was left with 2 options. He was left with no mod 1 and no mod 2, and he had picked no mod 2 and lost. So that was like a pick your poison battle, and now we have, we'll talk about it later, but now we have 2 of the grand finalists stuck in losers bracket for finals weekend. And also, Enry had won the Hard Rock 1 breakpoint against Maliszewski that brought him up 4-2, which led into the hidden 2 pick from Enry. And it kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah. This is such a...
That's a lot of context.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to say about it, I guess. This is just a weird match to talk about. Like, the DT2 double 2K combo was like the coolest thing ever until Maliszewski.
I think it was Maliszewski who broke on the DT2.
Yeah, he broke second.
Or he broke. Did he break first or did
He had
Enry
lower
break
rack.
first?
I think
he had a higher combo, but he ended up with 9 misses. Like, and then he choked the Nomad 4 FC, which I mean, fortunately didn't matter because he won the point anyway. But I feel like if you look at the scores overall, and you look at the score at time of DC on the hidden 2, it kind of looks like Maliszewski was the better player, kinda, but not by enough to be like super one-sided. And then he just the heartbreaking thing at the end there is that Maliszewski S-ranked Nomad 2, unfortunately with 200 lower max combo and everything, so it didn't end up mattering. Okay, here's what I'm gonna say about this, and that's all I'm gonna say about this is Peppy, please fix your goddamn fucking game.
I don't have too much to say on this match. I think this was just probably 2 of the best players in the tournament going at it, and it's unfortunate that there's a disconnect, but that's all there is to it. If there's a disconnect, tournament rules are followed, that's how it is. Whether Maliszewski was winning the hidden 2 at the time or not, I don't even know. I didn't watch the VOD. So I actually don't know if he was going to win that hidden 2 regardless or not. But Enry ends up otherwise top scoring the hidden 2 for the weekend, which I don't think there's a ton of plays on that map. Yeah, there's 6 plays total on the weekend, but every other score is 400k or below. Only Intercamping is above 400k at 404,000. So that is a score that's 1.5 times better than any other score on the map for the weekend. So still an extremely good score outside the context of that match. You have, a lot of wins on pretty close margins for Enry in this match, but this is something that I've said before about, tournament matches is you do not need to top score every map to win. You just need to be better than your opponent. Picking well and knowing what maps you can win by those slim margins is far more important in matches where you are going to be, maybe one-sidedly losing some things, one-sidedly winning some other things, like the speed on Nomad 5, for example. And then, being able to pick well in the later parts of a match and pull out a breakpoint here and there is really important. So I think this was a very good win from Enry. It's an unfortunate disconnect for Maliszewski, and it creates, either way, whoever lost here would have had to go up against Emre in losers bracket next anyway. So you're getting one of the best players in the tournament versus Emre in losers bracket for top 6, regardless of how this match goes. So yeah, does it suck that Maliszewski had the disconnect on Hidden 2? Absolutely. Should that be the only thing that's focused on? No. Enry played super, super well. Put up multiple top scores on other maps throughout the weekend as well. The top score on DT2, for example, was second top score on DT3 for the weekend. Had the number 2 score on Nomad 6, number 2 score on Nomad 5, and had the number 1 score on Nomad 2 for the weekend as well. Like, these are all very, very good scores. Maliszewski, to say nothing of him, also top scored multiple maps for the weekend, like the Nomad 3, Nomad 4, and a couple of others later on into the pool, the DT3. So both of these players played super well. Unfortunate disconnect, but that's all you can say about it, really. And at that point in the map, it's a foregone conclusion. And regardless of the disconnect, Enry top scored the map by 1.5 times the score anyone else had on the weekend. So clearly still played it very, very well.
I think the funny thing is that like they both okay, so I had for statistics I had went through the VOD and I tried to find the very second that it kind of disconnected on the stream, so I inputted Maliszewski's Hidden 2 score just manually. Enry and Maliszewski ended up having the same average accuracy, and despite the disconnect, which was I think is just a really funny point to put out there. But yeah, Enry winning the Hard Rock one was probably the deciding factor because that brought him up to match point, and it was just an uphill battle for Maliszewski from there. And then like Maliszewski was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Like you either choose Nomad 1 or you choose Nomad 2. And he chose a Nomad 2, and he unfortunately slider broke. And Enry won. And Enry won by like 100, I want to say like 100,000 because of that slider break. Just about. Which is
something like
pretty large. Yeah. But that wraps up.
Yeah,
oh,
100K.
Did you want to say something?
No, I was just confirming 100K.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but that wraps up our semifinals weekend. We're going to be moving on to finals predictions. This is our top 6 coming in, and we're going to introduce 2 more members to our panel for predictions. We're going to be introducing Miles and iFlame. Hello, gentlemen. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hey, I'm Miles. I'm the pooler of the tournament, along with Aiden BH, and I'm also a commentator as well, and glad to finally be getting back to full circle.
Hello, everybody. I am iFlame, and I do commentary sometimes.
Once in a while.
Right.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while. Just a little bit here and there. But yeah, we're going to be going over finals predictions. Our first match is going to be on the board, Maliszewski versus Emre. That's going to be Saturday, 12 UTC. Sorry, North Americans.
Sunday, I think, right?
These are very anti-NA times.
I think
GL,
this
if
is
you really
Sunday,
want to watch it.
12
watch it.
UTC though, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
Sunday,
time
12
is
UTC.
just either wrong or rescheduled, one of the two.
Rescheduled, I believe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's supposed to be Sunday, 12 UTC. I'm sorry. But did I not change it on the sheet? I swear to God, I did.
It's changed on the sheet. It's okay though.
It's just wrong on the graphic, that's all.
Oh, okay. Oh my God, I was about to go crazy. Anyways, yeah, Sunday 12 UTC because I think Maliszewski was busy on Saturday. But oh God, this is so hard because you have, like I said earlier in the podcast, you have the top 2 finalists from last year's Corsairs Close fighting for top 6, but we've been yapping about this since the tournament started. Emre scales with the pool, and he gained a significant advantage with a higher star rating. And Maliszewski, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a tiebreaker because I don't know what the situation might be like, who's playing better, or like who's, maybe unlucky circumstances might happen again. I don't know. But I think I'm going to give it to Emre 7-6. Oh my God. Yeah, it's best of 13 this week, by the way. So yeah, we're getting a grand finals match in finals. So don't miss it. Sunday 12 UTC.
Set your alarm clocks.
Set your alarm clocks. 5 a.m. PST, 8 a.m. EST.
the rest of the world is awake by then,
something,
so it doesn't matter.
something European times.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This is a really, really hard match to predict. I want to predict Emrek because the scaling factor, but it's not like Maliszewski scales poorly either. When you compare their head-to-heads from last week, it was 3-2 in favor of Maliszewski, but there are also, multiple maps like the Nomad 5 where Emrek is ahead on both of his plays on that map rather than just one of them, as he was in loser's bracket. He's still doing very, very well on lots of other picks like the Hidden 1 and the Hidden 3 throughout the tournament. There's some head-to-heads that are extremely close, like within 50, 60k. And then there's some maps where Emrek is just completely dominant, like the DT1, but he was not given the chance to play DT2 or DT3 last weekend, so we don't know how he stacks up versus Maliszewski on those kinds of maps. I feel like this is a match that, again, can go either way. I'm going to say Emrek on, tiebreaker, but that's also not guaranteed at all. This is an impossible match to predict. All I know is this is going to be good.
Yeah. Every match that these guys play basically is a banger, right? Corsace closed finals last year, grand finals last year, round table. Holy shit, round table. That was one of the greatest matches I've ever been party to. That was so. The history between these guys obviously speaks for itself, and Maliszewski has actually won at least one of those when it wasn't a grand final. I believe that was that winners final last year of close.
Yeah, it was winners finals last year.
Winners finals close.
And Maliszewski won that. Then Emrek goes down, gets the harder pool in grand finals, and wins that on a pool where Maliszewski was kind of outscaled at that point, unfortunately. But the one person in the world who outscales him. And I actually didn't check back. Somebody involved in map pooling, star rating comparison between last year's finals and this year's finals. Anybody?
Probably the exact same. At least that was intended to be the exact same, roughly.
Yeah. So, Dio was saying, there is no outscaling happening yet. This is when these two guys are neck and neck, basically, because they're both so incredibly good. I'm basically with Dio on this. This is just a complete and utter coin flip. I just want I this one can just go to tiebreaker.
We need
to
literally
just go straight to tiebreaker.
So we need at least 2 Maliszewski from the remaining 3. Regardless of what you actually think, because this is just so close.
Yeah, because last year Maliszewski won on finals. Part of me wants to pick him to do the same thing again and win in finals week again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious what the motivation is going to look like here as well, right? Maliszewski losing last week in a way that I don't know how he felt about. I'd be curious, if we did post-match interviews, I'd love to know what his thoughts were on that match, but obviously not the case. Meanwhile, Emrek last week won 12 maps to 0 in about a total of 50 minutes, right? Just unbelievably dominant against two people that he's kind of expected to be unbelievably dominant against. I'm just kind of yapping at this point because I literally can't make a prediction here. I'm gonna say we just go all the way straight to tiebreaker. No, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go straight to the freaking tiebreaker. And Maliszewski wins it by 50k, because that would be fun. That would be cool. I'd love to see that happen.
Miles, your turn.
Miles. He died. He may have died.
He may have died. I played
Miles. No.
Hello?
He's back.
He's back.
He's back.
He's back.
Miles, you're up, buddy.
Oh, he's not back. He's
Oh,
frozen
okay.
again.
All right, we're skipping Miles.
No. Finally, I've been sitting here for 40 minutes and it didn't die, and now we are here and it dies. Okay. Am I legible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. So we've done a lot of the screaming and yelling because, oh my god, it's Maliszewski versus Emrek. It's back. This is the match everyone looks forward to in any top tier 1v1 tournament. But let's look at the optics of this compared to the map pool instead of first just saying, oh my god, this is going to TB. Because as much as that is definitely a possibility, this map pool, I think we kind of have to look at it for what it is. I think we've got an equal amount of the skill sets that either player would have a major advantage on, being Maliszewski being marginally one on reading, and Emrek being a little bit more so of one on high mechanics and speed. So I'd like to say one thing. I think if Maliszewski loses one of those reading picks, it's probably just death from there. But after those more definitive skill sets, I think actually the more like contested maps in this pool favor Maliszewski a little bit more. Something like that Nomad 3, lots of aim control, Hidden 2, tons of aim control as well. That's one thing that I think could give Maliszewski a bit of an advantage. I think being one of the stronger aim control players, maybe at Emre's level or surpassed, depending on the day. So to throw a little bit of a wrench in the mix, I'm going to say Maliszewski on a really good day can win this one, maybe 7-5 or 7-4. But also there's so many confounding variables for this match because, you know, Maliszewski, if his Osu starts shitting the bed again and he crashes a few times, that could lose him the match. And then Emre's motivation. I mean, he's shown to not really be caring too much so far in this tournament. Is he going to turn it on against his biggest rival? I mean, I think so, but still no way to tell.
I think this is what would have normally been a grand finals matchup. So I don't think there's really much question as to the motivation for both of these players. You know, if there was ever a match to be motivated for and to practice for, this is going to be the one, right? Like, there's a very realistic chance that the winner of this match ends up winning the entire tournament. I do generally agree with Miles, though. I think if Malice loses any of the rating picks, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But I think as a whole, the pool probably favors Maliszewski slightly. And then I think the tiebreaker favors Maliszewski slightly as well. So if we do end up going to tiebreaker, I feel like Maliszewski probably takes it. But I think you guys have pretty much covered the rest. We saw this matchup in finals last year. And assuming the difficulty is similar, I think Maliszewski is going to take it in tiebreaker again. And I'm going to say 7-6 for Maliszewski.
Beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep,
I flame fire alarm.
beep, beep.
It is
Might be
not
a
my
fire
fire alarm this time, thankfully.
Oh, it's
It would be Dio this
Dio's. Oh,
time.
wow.
Oh,
I expect it to be. I expect it to be iPhone because it's always
Not
iPhone.
again. Hey, that was one time. Okay, that was one time.
we promise that we will not purposely put our podcasters in danger.
Oh man.
Oh no. We're gonna sit. If anybody's fire alarm goes off, they'll have to sit in the fire until the podcast is over.
Luckily,
Yeah.
my
Thank you.
filter on
What
OBS.
dedication to the craft, I see.
This is fine IRL.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah.
Been there, done that.
Okay, next match is gonna be. All right. Oh wait, yeah. Did we all predict?
Yes.
Yes,
We did.
It
Okay,
was,
we are-
I think we were just waiting
3-2
for the cards to
Maliszewski.
change to MCY for Kriller. There we go. Oh fuck, dude. Like how? I'm gonna.
This is
Hey,
so
Google.
crazy.
Hey Google, flip a coin.
Oh man. This
Oh
is
my
the
God.
It's going?
hard hitting analysis you guys come here for.
Yeah, this is a hard hitting analysis. Oh, it's tails, so it's Kriller. I don't know if I want to vote for Kriller though, so I'm gonna make iPhone go first.
Well, regardless of the coin, I am actually going to take Kriller. I think Kriller, like you guys said, had a fantastic week last week. Kriller had number 1 scores on Hidden 1, Hidden 3, Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 3. Had a fantastic Nomad 6 score. Only thing he struggled somewhat with is some of the DTs that a little bit worse on. But I think this pool is pretty solid for Kriller as well. And we've seen in past tournaments that Kriller has a pretty high skill cap and should be comfortable enough on this pool. Obviously, MCY4 had a great qualifiers, but I don't feel like MCY4 has necessarily been tested as much as some of the other players. If you look at the bracket, played against Chicone as well as Decon and beat those two, but I would argue that Kriller is going to be a tougher opponent than either of those. And then the toughest opponent MCY has faced in a worst HR player did end up dropping that one 6-3. I mean, even looking at the individual statistics throughout the tournament, Kriller has generally had the better performance aside from the qualifiers, of course, and the quarterfinals. But I think it's going to be 7-5 for Kriller. I think it's going to be an incredibly close one. But I think Kriller has the scaling and on this pool has the skill set to win this one.
Okay, to continue down the line, I think this is a really freaking tough matchup because unlike I think most other matches this weekend, there's no real advantage when it comes to speed and high mechanics. I think it goes very marginally in favor of MCY, but not nearly enough to be definitive. And these two players, when it comes to their strengths, they like to pick a lot of the same things. Both of them really strong in the aim control, both of them really strong in the tech. That makes them really good Course Ace closed players. So I think really the skill sets they'll go for, Kriller's going to go for reading and gimmick early on. There's a lot of that in the pool. That's, I think, going to be his biggest advantage. And then MCY will probably pick into the aim, which is a little bit tougher for him because he's got the Nomad 1, he's got the hidden 1, but then after that, there's not really too many full-on aim picks left. Like, you're not going to pick Furioso as an aim pick. Like, no way in hell you're doing that. But then I think MCY is going to have to rely on maybe some, as what we like to call in the business, clown fiestas on some speed maps. We've seen him do it before against some players. Some players like Zydunator, he loves to pick the speed and just do a little bit better than her. I think he's going to try to do the same thing to Kriller here on some speed maps. And if he can win those, then the match starts to go into this really fun territory where both of these players are going to be forced to pick the tech and the aim control. And we're going to get some really freaking close maps. And this is just another one of those gut picks. You said Kriller's been doing better in the tournament. MCY has been on a tear recently. I'm going to go with MCY 7-5.
Ooh, okay.
It's interesting having these two matches kind of back to back because they're like so different, right? You know, you have Maliszewski and Emre, who are, you know, defending champion, defending second place, and obviously, you know, two of the top 3 to 5, depending on your metrics, tournament players in the world, if not just the 2 best tournament players in the world. And then you drop down to MCY4 versus Kriller, which is equally, I would say, close, but at a skill level that's just lower. So, you know, predicting this becomes a little less just like, oh, this person has the better raw skill cap, because I think they're both kind of going to be getting skill capped on some picks like Miles was talking about. Neither of them is super great at speed compared to some of the other players left in the tournament. So the clown fiesta of speed picks, I would be very curious to see that coming into effect. But I think dear me. I am going to go with just a raw gut feeling on this. I think Kriller is playing incredibly well, and I think he's going to keep that up, and I think he's going to win 7-5. Am I sure of that? No. Does my gut say that? Yes. Do I just like rooting for Kriller here and there despite respecting the heck out of MCY4? There's a little of that too. I'm a tad bit biased, I'll admit it. But I think this is another match that could really go either way based on just one or two of, like Miles was talking about, those tech and aim control picks that either of these guys can win. And that's literally one break point on one of those could separate the players.
I'm going to go MCY4. And it's not just to keep the
Mr.
the
G,
docket
Dio,
muted,
you're
my
muted.
friend.
Dio, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted on Discord.
Dio?
You're still
Hello,
muted.
I was muted on Discord, not the stream.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm going MCY4. And it's not just to keep the docket balanced, but it's also just looking through their head-to-head scores. We're talking about Kriller playing out of his mind, having a ridiculous weekend, and then you look at the score difference on a lot of the maps where Kriller is ahead. And it's not that much. Yeah, the Nomad 6, the Hidden 3, he's got a sizable advantage there for sure. Hard Rock 1, he's number 1 on the map, but only ahead by about 120k. Bad day versus good day, that's very winnable. Hard Rock 2, he's again ahead by 108,000 over MCY4, and he had a score last weekend that was below MCY4's as well. Same on the Hard Rock 3, he's ahead by 75k and also had a score below MCY4's. DT1, he's ahead by a whopping 22,000 points. DT3, he's ahead by 28,000 points. If with how well he was playing last weekend, that's how close the scores are. I feel like MCY4 can still do very, very well in this match and maybe even has a leg up if he's having a very good day, if he's better practiced, if Kriller is slightly off on the day. So I'm going to go MCY4 because of just how close they were last weekend. Yeah, there's more head-to-head wins for Kriller, but a lot of them, especially later on into the pool, and the DTs and the Hard Rocks, are extremely close between these two players. So obviously it can still go the other way. I don't think this is decisive at all, but I do think it's maybe slightly more likely for MCY4 to win. This is a super close match as well.
Let's go, Dio.
So about that coin flip. Yeah, everybody else on the board has all of these analyses, and I'm here to be unhinged. So I'm probably gonna butcher this pronunciation, but 希望会有更好的日子 and Vas. So thank you, Kriller. You won the coin flip. 7-6. Next.
Oh my god.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
There it is for your screenshots, I suppose.
It's just-
So,
Hey, I mean, no one's getting clowned here. It's lots of parody.
All right.
All right. So so based on how predictions work is that we, as a panel, the majority votes for potentials, and this is how we expect it to go. So 3-2, and then we predicted Maliszewski to win the. I wasn't paying
I believe
attention.
so.
Yeah, we did.
we
3
did.
to 2.
Okay.
3-2.
But yes,
Both
it's
3-2.
basically majority versus majority for those who have joined us for the first time. So we expect Maliszewski to win against Emre, and we expect Kriller to win against MCY4. But if this matchup happens, I think regardless of who wins, Maliszewski versus Emre, that person is gonna win against Kriller versus MCY4, like just regardless. So in this case, I'm just gonna go Maliszewski off of sheer precedence. Like regardless of who wins, Maliszewski or Emre, that person definitely beats out Kriller or MCY4. So
Yeah, have to say I agree. I think regardless of how the MCY4 Kriller match goes, it's very likely to be the winner of Maliszewski versus Emrek taking the win afterwards. And just to put some stats behind it, if you look at their scores from last week, there is, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 head-to-heads. Maliszewski wins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8 head-to-heads. And on Nomad 6, he has a score in between both of Kriller's, and he's also behind Kriller's winning score on that by 5,000 points.
And it's also not close on the ones
yeah.
that he wins.
Yeah, it's also very not close on the ones that he's winning. Yeah, except for Hard Rock 2. That one's very close. But a lot of the other ones, yeah, it's not super close. Even 1 versus 2 on the Nomad 3 is still a 140,000 score difference in favor of Maliszewski. Doesn't sound like a lot, but Kriller scores 480k, so yeah, that's a pretty significant portion of his score.
Yeah, not much more to say to this than the winner of Maliszewski versus Emre beats the winner of MCY4 versus Kriller. It really just makes it all the more unfortunate the way this bracket played out, that we're stuck in this position where, you know, instead of like Maliszewski versus Emre the round after this or something, or in like the losers final, it's them here and one of them getting knocked out in top 6. You kind of just wish that Emre hadn't trolled qualifiers, but you know, that's several weeks ago at this point, and we've beaten that horse to death. I think the winner of Maliszewski versus Emre, here's my hot take, and it's not really that hot. The winner of Maliszewski Emre just wins the tournament.
kind of cold take, honestly.
Kind of cold
That's
take.
it's not a
Kinda
hot
cold.
take at all, but that's my take on it.
Well, I mean, that's the take that most people are going with, even though neither of them are in the winner's bracket. That's going to be a banger of a matchup to come when that grand finals happens, but still got to determine Maliszewski or Emre versus Kriller or MCY, and I'm going to have to agree with you. Shocking absolutely nobody that Maliszewski probably wins that, but like, I don't know, assuming Kriller wins this match, that assumes he probably takes a couple points off speed on MCY, and you know, if Maliszewski has some cold hands like we do up here right now, then maybe can take a couple tapping picks, you know, maybe if you practice the breakcore remix of the guitar solo from Freebird by Leonard Skinner and you're able to win that pick, that could be a point on the board against Maliszewski. You never know. Lots of tapping in this pool. And then, you know, Kriller, if he just continues to be on a tear, it's tough, but like the stuff that Maliszewski is good at, Kriller is also really good at. So like Maliszewski bad day overlap with a Kriller good day. Like, who's to say Kriller can't take this match the distance, but you can't logically say from past history that Kriller is going to have too big of a chance in this match. So it's going to be Maliszewski here, IMO.
Well, here's how
Here's how-
Kriller
yeah.
can win
Here's
this.
how Kriller can win, baby.
He can't.
We knew it.
7-2
was coming.
Malice. Nothing more to be said.
We can't.
Well, this is all the motivation Kriller could have ever needed, but the problem is, I don't know that it helps. Unfortunately, I love you, Kriller, but I don't know if
Tough shakes in the losers bracket this week.
Yeah, I think we had that feeling last week when it was Emmerich versus
Emmerich
whoever won
Zudi?
between Intercamping and Decade. No, it was when we wanted to do the potential between Emmerich and whoever won between Decade and Intercamping. It was the same feeling of like, doesn't matter who wins, Emmerich is just gonna beat them.
Yep.
And I think it's the same story here, right? But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up that, and we're gonna be going to our last match of the weekend. Our winners finals match between Enry and worst HR player. And for those who don't know, I'm a Korean American, so previous weeks and basically all throughout the tournament, I have been voting Korea, no matter what, because hashtag, national pride or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I think I might eat my words here and not stand by that, because as much as Forum has been on the up and up and he's been basically, performing so well, Enry has already made a place for himself just in 1v1s. Like, yes, Forum has put incredible solo scores and team tournament scores, but I haven't seen him in many 1v1s. Meanwhile, Enry has already established himself as a very strong 1v1 player in multiple tournaments, and he was an invitee from last year. So, and I think he's gonna fucking practice because, well, winners finals, but I think it's such a hard decision because both of them are really, really good, and both of them are awesome players. But I think because of the fact that only off of the fact that Enry has precedence already as a 1v1 player, I'm going to give it to him 7-5.
Yeah, this is hard to predict. I do think that the fact that there's a little more of the speed in this pool, you have stuff like Or the Flood DT, Tweaker DT as options, Longinus as an option, a Breakcore remix of the guitar solo from Freebird by Leonard Skinner as an option, and a couple of like higher BPM picks in the hidden and hard rock pools. Yeah, they're not necessarily speed, but does maybe help a little bit there, and help a little bit for Enry in this pool. The one thing that's interesting is when you look at the head-to-head scores for these two, I think they have like 5 head-to-head maps. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 head-to-heads, excuse me. And it's 4-2 in favor of worst HR player looking at their head-to-heads. Some of those are very close, and some of them are not so close. So it confounds things a little bit, because on the stuff where they're not compared head to head, like, the DT2 score for Enry is number 1 on the weekend. The Hard Rock 3 score for worst HR player is number 2 on the weekend. The Hidden 3 for worst HR player is number 3 on the weekend. The Hidden 2 for Enry is number 1 on the weekend. The No Mod 5, where worst HR player didn't play, for Enry is number 2 on the weekend. So there's a lot of places where, if they didn't match up head to head, they're setting some of the best scores on the weekend for these maps. And what that says to me is that there's a difference in the style of maps that they actually want to play. Enry is far more focused on some of the reading picks and the speed and mechanics than worst HR player was, and I think that's also going to be the case in this match, right? Enry was facing Maliszewski. You pick the speed mechanics if you are Enry into Maliszewski. And I think you're going to do the same thing as a worst HR player. So we'll probably see some of the same preferences come out for both of these players, which I think makes the head-to-heads less useful. I don't know how to predict this match. 7-5 Enry? I don't know. Like,
flip a coin, Dio. Just ask Google to flip a coin.
Yeah, 7-5 Enry. I don't know. Like, I think this pool is good for both of them. There's a lot of aim control for worst HR player to take advantage of. Obviously, Enry is very good on like aim mechanics, stuff like the DT1, the Nomad one, but less so on aim control as compared to worst HR player. So I feel like a lot of that is going to be the pick strategy for worst HR player. Reading is kind of a toss-up. It was a win head-to-head for worst HR player on the Nomad 6, but by less than 20k, so that's not definitive. Two very different players with a little bit of overlap and a pool that is good for both of them. I don't know how to predict it. Should be a very good match. I will say if it goes to tiebreaker, I think Enry wins. That tiebreaker is 250 BPM, and it's a Kategiri song, so I know it's got some speed in it. So I'm gonna say let's go Enry tiebreaker 7-6, just because of that. Like,
Okay, I'll support that.
know.
I'll go Enry tiebreaker 7-6.
Yeah. Good thing we don't have the actual predicted scores down there, so it doesn't even really matter.
We don't have space. It's okay.
Yeah. So this is like Dio was saying. I mean, you really covered basically all the bases and a lot of what I would have talked about as well. This is a situation where you have like 1, 2, 4, maybe 5 maps that are just unbelievably favored to Enry, that there's literally like a 0.0% chance that worst HR player can win. Like Nomad 2, he's literally never winning. Nomad 5, he's literally never winning. DT2, DT3, he's literally never winning. DT1 most likely isn't winning because there's some tapping in that one as well. There's some 8-12 note bursts in that one that I think Enry that Forum would definitely have some trouble with. But the thing is, Forum gets to ban 2 of those. So let's say there's generously 3 picks that are like guaranteed Enry. And practically everything else is viable for both players. The thing that gets me is that worst HR player has shown this remarkable ability to come up with unbelievable plays in super high leverage scenarios. Thinking back to like OWC Grand Finals, Hard Rock 2 FC in match. Like, there are just not many people in the world who can come up with that sort of performance at that exact point in time. Somehow or other, despite really never being a big 1v1 player, I have to think that worst HR player can conjure that up in a 1v1 situation anyway. I think some of these picks, like has been talked about, the aim control stuff, your Nomad 3, Nomad 4, your reading stuff like your Nomad 6, Hidden 2, etc. I think a lot of those picks are going to be very favored toward worst HR player because I value his ability to come up with those plays in the heat of the moment when it matters most. And some of the stuff that worked out for him in the compared scores from semifinals is going to be there as well. Like the Hard Rock pool, you have worst HR player with the better score by a pretty decent margin on both Hard Rock 1 and Hard Rock 2. And so, there's a couple more options open to him in this matchup as well. As was said, I think Enry is basically guaranteed to get minimum 3 points, maybe 4. But I think pretty much everything else worst HR player can win, and all you need to do at that point is get a break point somewhere. So I'm gonna go Forum, and I'm gonna say it goes 7-5 because, like has been said, I don't think Forum wins if it goes to tiebreaker. I think he has to win before a tiebreaker, but I think he's capable of doing that based on what we've seen from him.
So TLDR, bro is clutch.
Yeah, bro is the
TLDR, bro is clutch.
He's got that dog in him. He is him. It's like worst HR player is Jalen Brunson and Enry is Jason Tatum.
I don't know who any of those people are.
It's okay. Miles knows who they are. That's what matters.
I get it, but calling Enry Jason Tatum is unfair to him because that guy is pretty freaking clutch as well. Maybe we'll say it's like Jalen Brunson and like Anthony Edwards or something. Both those guys.
Does anybody know who any of these people are, please?
I don't.
Not at all.
I
Not at all.
don't watch whatever sport they're talking about. Sorry.
Okay.
Which ball is that?
Basket.
What?
I figured it was basketball, but I didn't want to be wrong. So.
Okay, now for my analysis, Aaron touched on a lot of what I was going to say. The one thing going into this match is that Enry probably has more straight up guaranteed picks, and the pressure is really going to be on Forum to win a lot of those contested picks. But I feel like, I don't know, the one thing that really struck on me while I was thinking about this is that I think that the match is really going to come down to the HR pool, because I'm not sure if either of these guys are going to want to pick many of these maps into the other. I think on paper, they probably split this. I'm not sure, like, who wins Furioso between these two. One bone that I think is given a little bit to Enry is HR2 being some stream flow aim. I'm not sure how well Forum is going to do on that, even though it's not necessarily a BPM high enough to really cap Forum, but we haven't really seen him pick, those follow point stream maps that often. But another map that just stuck out to me as being pretty pivotal is the HR4. 280 BPM short bursts might be a little bit too much for Forum, but if it isn't, then he's going to do really well on that due to the fast aim. It depends on if Enry maybe gets a high accuracy lead on that. But that map could be pivotal as a flex pick after the speed is really ran out for Enry. I think the pick strategy for him is some combination of, no mod 2, no mod 5, the entire DT pool, and then you kind of just have to find somewhere to go from there. And I would say for him, maybe like HR4 could be advantage to him. Hidden 4 could be advantage for him. Extend has a lot of bursts. And pressure, once again, going to be on Forum to really bang some of those picks home. They're going to be a lot more contested, I think, 100% of the time. But Enry, also extremely good at tech, extremely good at aim control. I like his chances in stealing some of those picks. So even if Forum is super clutch, I'm going to take Enry here, maybe 7-4.
Yep. I mean, I think you guys have pretty much covered most of the map pool, and I would generally agree with everything that's been said so far. They're two very different players, but in my mind, I think as close as the match could be on paper, and as different as the skill sets for these two players are, I think when you actually look at the pool and the maps that they want to play, Enry feels like much more of a well-rounded player. He's shown consistently throughout the tournament, putting up really solid scores on a bunch of different maps, had really good speed scores, of course, has had number one on every no mod one that he's played in the first two rounds of the tournament, has had some really good hard rock and hidden scores. And so I think it's more likely that we see Enry winning one of worst HR player's picks than it is we see worst HR player taking a speed pick, for example. And I do think worst HR player is invaluable, especially in a team tournament, because on those worst HR player maps, some of those more aim control focused picks, he is best in the world. But having that kind of deficit in speed and other skill sets to a lesser extent is a lot more impactful in a 1v1 tournament than it is in a team tournament when you have other people to cover. And so I think Enry is going to be able to take advantage of that. And I would say 7-4 as well, actually. I'm with Miles on this one.
All right.
Oh yeah, wait, one thing I'd like to mention, Forum FC'd Kobito of the Shining Needle DT the other day. That guy is getting better at speed, and I am very scared. I'm very scared.
He's scared, chat.
He is scared.
He
I'm
is
alright.
shaking.
I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all. First match of the weekend is going to be Saturday 14 UTC. That will be MCY4 versus Kriller. And then Sunday matches are going to be 12, 13, 14. So Maliszewski versus Emre is going to be probably like one of the biggest matches of the weekend. That's going to be at 12 UTC. Another highlight is going to be literally this match, which is right after Sunday 13 UTC. And then the winner of Malice Emmerich and Kriller MCY4 will be playing right after this at Sunday 14. And we will probably have Mapo Showcase sometime later that day. Really awesome weekend. Really good matchups. We hope you guys don't miss it. And with that, this has been Full Circle. I've been Kay. And we will see you next time. Bye.
You.